Chapter 234. 1 hour later, Li Fuchen successfully broke through to the 5th level of the Earth realm. At the same time, 9 portions of the Star Road energy was used up, leaving behind only 3 portions of Star Road energy. Breaking through to the next level would require 3 portions of Star Road energy. Breaking through to the 2nd level would require a total of 12 portions of Star Road energy. Breaking through to the 3rd level would require a total of 39 portions of Star Road energy. From the situation of breaking through to the 5th level of the Earth realm, Li Fuchen calculated that for every increase in cultivation level, the consumption of Star Road energy would be 3 times the original amount. The further one advanced, the more exaggerated it would be. It seemed like the Star Road energy and the human body would gradually develop a resistance. If I am able to pass the 5th stage, I will be able to obtain another 16 portions of Star Road energy. It might not be enough for me to break through to the 6th level of the Earth realm, but it will definitely reduce the time required. Standing up, Li Fuchen thought to himself. But the 5th stage of the Star Road isn't going to be so easy to reach, let alone pass it. Looking at the 5th stage of the Star Road, Li Fuchen didn't feel confident anymore. At the later stages of the 4th Star Road, Li Fuchen felt the strain. The chi field at the early stages of the 5th Star Road was at least twice the intensity of the 4th Star Road. No matter what, I have to give it a try. If I don't, how am I going to know my limits and how am I going to surpass them? Taking a deep breath, Li Fuchen stepped out with his right leg and resolutely stepped on the 5th Star Road. Swish! A horrific pressure descended, causing Li Fuchen to feel his spirit while getting distorted. If the later stages of the 4th Star Road was an extremely violent gale, then the 5th Star Road would be a hurricane, a destructive class hurricane. Withstanding the hurricane, Li Fuchen advanced step by step. At this moment, he couldn't even run. Autumn Rain City, Li Fuchen's courtyard. Strange, where did Li Fuchen go? Fan Qiansong and Fan Qinyu searched everywhere for Li Fuchen's figure, but to no avail. Fan Qinyu said, "Go, Li Fuchen must have something to attend to. He wouldn't leave without telling us." Fan Qiansong nodded. A pity, the biannual Autumn Rain Tea Party is about to begin. This year, the host of the Autumn Rain Tea Party is the flourishing sect's gold-class direct disciple, Xianxia. With her around, there should be plenty of gold-class direct disciples from various sects participating in the tea party. There was an autumn rain mountain near the Autumn Rain City. It rained on empty autumn rain all year round. No one knew when it started, but a gold-class direct disciple of a sect held the first Autumn Rain Tea Party on empty autumn rain. This tea party had been passed down, and every tea party was hosted by a different host. This year's host was Flourishing Sect's gold-class direct disciple, Xianxia. The Flourishing faction produced beauties, and Xianxia was considered a rare beauty even in the Flourishing faction. If there were no accidents, this year's Autumn Rain Tea Party might be the most lively tea party in the past 10 years. Fan Qiansong and Fan Qinyu also wanted to join in the fun. Fan Qinyu said, "Go, we can leave a letter. If Li Fuchen returns and sees the letter, he will come to the autumn rain to look for us." Fan Qiansong's eyes lit up. "Why didn't I think of that? You're smart." As he spoke, Fan Qiansong left a letter in Li Fuchen's bedroom. After that, the two of them left Autumn Rain City and rushed towards Mount Autumn Rain. Along the way, the two of them saw many figures flying in the direction of Mount Autumn Rain. "That looks like Ruan Qianxiu from the Silver Cloth sect." Fan Qiansong's eyes landed on one of the figures and his eyes shrank. Ruan Qianxiu, one of the top gold-class direct disciples from the Silver Cloth sect. He was at the 7th level of the Earth realm and had an exceptional ability, which was much stronger than Fu Chongshan. More importantly, Ruan Qianxiu was ranked 98th on the STARS ranking. The STARS ranking was a prodigy ranking that covered the entire East Unicorn continent. The STARS ranking was held once every 3 years and all the elite prodigies from all the sects would participate. There were a total of 108 individuals in the STARS ranking, and those that were ranked on the STARS ranking were all considered as the top young prodigies. The previous STARS ranking was held last year. Next year, there would be a new STARS ranking. Not every sect has someone that can be ranked on the STARS ranking. My carefree sect doesn't even have a single stars ranking youth. Fan Qinyu frowned too. The East Unicorn continent had close to 100 sections. On average, each sect would only have one or more individuals that could be ranked on the stars ranking. But the elite factions would usually have a few individuals that could be ranked on the stars ranking. As such, there were naturally plenty of elite prodigies from regular sects that couldn't be ranked. Of course, it was also related to age. For some sects, their most outstanding prodigies were still young and couldn't be ranked on the stars ranking. But it would be different after 3 years. The Autumn Rain Tea Party was about to begin and Li Fuchen was still struggling in the Star Road hidden domain. The chi field of the 5th segment was too violent and vile. Li Fuchen was only halfway through the segment and he already felt that his strength was lacking. I have the golden amulet but I can't even reach the 5th stage. This is too embarrassing. Li Fuchen was extremely unwilling. He wasn't willing to disappoint the golden amulet. It didn't matter if the golden amulet chose him unintentionally or intentionally. To Li Fuchen, it was an opportunity to change his fate. He had to display his worth and make the golden amulet feel that choosing him was the right decision. Clenching his teeth, Li Fuchen walked on resolutely. 60% of the way. 70% of the way. Li Fuchen felt every inch of his flesh and every inch of his bones struggling. 80% of the way. 90% of the way. Li Fuchen felt extremely tired. He wanted to collapse, but he couldn't do that. What Li Fuchen didn't know was that as he walked on this segment, his spirit will was gradually getting stronger. If not, he wouldn't have been able to reach this stage. The spirit will was different from the consciousness. It was a person's original will, the will of life. There were other ways to strengthen the consciousness, but the spirit will could only be relied on under normal circumstances. Just like a regular person, he could use various methods to train and strengthen himself. But to have a strong will, it wasn't enough to just train, it required a fearsome obsession. The spirit will originated from both the innate and the acquired. Those with a higher star bone frame would have a stronger innate spirit will and wouldn't be easily shaken by the outside world. Li Fuchen belonged to the acquired category. The year he lost his talent, it caused his spirit will to be much stronger than the average person. With the golden amulet changing his soul spirit, it was also slowly changing his innate spirit will. Due to the huge impact of losing his talent, he had an obsession. An obsession to become stronger, an obsession to live up to the little golden amulet. With this fearsome obsession, Li Fuchen's spirit will was constantly getting stronger, forcing him to complete the 5th segment of the Star Road. When he arrived at the 5th stage of the Star Road, Li Fuchen looked as though he was fished out from the water. His body was drenched and he seemed to have lost a lot of weight. But a chi presence that was sharper than swords and sabers permeated the air. I wonder how many people will be able to leave their mark on the monument of names on the 5th stage. Changing into a clean set of clothes, Li Fuchen thought to himself. How would he know that this was the first time someone came to the 5th stage of the Star Road? It was unprecedented and unprecedented. He was the only one. It could be said to be unprecedented and unmatched. Chapter 235. The 5th stage's test was the solution of martial Dao. The comprehension of martial Dao tested one's perception, while the solution of martial Dao tested one's combat skills. Swish. In the void, a figure appeared. This figure was actually another Li Fuchen who was also wielding a long sword. With a shake of the long sword, the Li Fuchen thrust at Li Fuchen. Clang. Li Fuchen blocked with his sword. The current Li Fuchen was unable to circulate his chi, which meant to say that this was purely a test of combat skills. Cling cling clang clang. Both sides exchanged blows and the battle was extremely intense. Even though they couldn't use their chi, the battle became even more dangerous. If there was any carelessness, there wouldn't be any leeway. Die! With a flash of sword light, Li Fuchen pierced the throat of the Li Fuchen opposite him. With his exceptional awareness, Li Fuchen took a few moves to figure out his opponent's moves. To him, this stage's test was much easier than the 4th stage's test. The 5th stage, the monument of names appeared. Not even a single mark? Li Fuchen revealed a surprised expression. He thought that there would be 2 or 3 individuals who would be able to reach the 5th stage in one go. He didn't expect that he was the only one. How could Li Fuchen know that it was already considered a feat for most of the people to walk 10% or 20% of the 5th star road, let alone the 5th stage? Taking a deep breath, Li Fuchen began to draw the sword mark in the void. As the sword mark was branded on the monument of names, it vibrated and a dazzling ray of light pierced through the sky and penetrated the starry sky. In the sky above the star road, golden electric balls appeared out of nowhere. These golden thunderballs were as big as stars. Once they exploded, the golden thunderbolts were like an endless golden forest that covered the starry sky. Behind the endless golden thunderbolts, Li Fuchen could vaguely see a golden figure. Star Road Hidden Domain. I'm afraid it isn't just a regular heaven-class hidden domain. It must contain some secrets. Li Fuchen thought in his heart. The so-called hidden domain was a mystical space. The Star Road Hidden Domain didn't feel like a mystical space to Li Fuchen. Or it should be said that it exceeded the scope of a hidden domain. The appearance of the golden electric balls was too shocking. On the Star Road, everyone lifted their heads with a fearful expression. On the 6th Star Road, a figure lifted his head. This figure had a terrifying aura and was much stronger than Xiaoshi. The starry path phenomenon appeared 4 times in total. The first time wasn't too obvious, so it was obviously the 2nd stage. The next 3 times were the 3rd stage, the 4th stage, and the 5th stage. Who managed to get from the 1st stage to the 5th stage in one go? This person was extremely shocked. In the history of the Star Road Mystic Domain, there had never been anyone who was able to pass through the 5th round on their first try. This was simply unprecedented and no one would be able to do it in the future. Even he had only made it to the 4th stage on his first attempt. He had only walked a little more than half of the 5th star road, let alone the 5th stage. After resting for a while, Li Fuchen walked on the 6th star road. The star road chi field contains spiritual pressure and aura pressure. Aura was related to one's cultivation. However, in addition to one's cultivation level, one's aura could also be increased through a secret technique that could increase one's vital energy. Take for example Li Fuchen's mystical dragon secret technique, which could increase his chi presence by 1 or 2 levels. Starting from the 4th star road, Li Fuchen started to activate the mystical dragon secret technique. Even though the mystical dragon secret technique wasn't of much use, it could at least make things easier for Li Fuchen. Walking on the 6th star road, Li Fuchen's back was bent from the pressure. The chi field here was too horrific. His chi presence was simply negligible and only his spirit will was able to withstand it. It is said that on the 2nd attempt of the Star Road Mystic Domain, the overall chi field of the Star Road would be much weaker. I wonder if it is true. Li Fuchen walked step by step with difficulty. After walking for a short distance, Li Fuchen couldn't hold on any longer and fell head first onto the ground. Swish! A blue radiance surged and Li Fuchen was teleported out of the Star Road Mystic Domain. Autumn Rain City, Li Fuchen's courtyard. Li Fuchen's figure emerged from the blue radiance in a flash. Taking a deep breath, Li Fuchen lifted his head to look at the sky. Seeing the blue sky and white clouds, he felt much better. The Star Road Mystic Domain gives off an oppressive feeling. The real world is still the most comfortable. After adjusting his breath for a period of time, Li Fuchen gradually recovered. Returning to his bedroom, Li Fuchen found a letter. Opening the letter, Li Fuchen muttered, "Autumn Rain Tea Party?" According to what Fan Xiansong said, the Autumn Rain Tea Party would be held on MT Autumn Rain and the date was today. In order to participate in the tea party, one must be a Gold Class Direct Disciple from their respective sections. Regular Silver Class Direct Disciples weren't qualified to participate. Even if they did, they would be the ones to be embarrassed. The Autumn Rain Tea Party was usually held before the Stars Ranking Tournament. It was for mutual exchange, to broaden one's horizons, and to prepare for the Stars Ranking Tournament. The host of this year's Autumn Rain Tea Party was the flourishing sect's Gold Class Direct Disciple, Qin Keishi. Should I go? Li Fuchen frowned. This Autumn Rain Tea Party was just a small tea party. It was impossible for all the Gold Class Direct Disciples to attend. It was already ridiculous for 5% of the participants to attend. Forget it. I shall go and see. I can also experience the standard of the gold class direct disciples from the various sections. After a slight hesitation, Li Fuchen still decided to make the trip. Since he was a gold class direct disciple of the Azure Water sect, he had to interact with prodigies of this level. It wasn't good to work behind closed doors. Leaving Autumn Rain City, Li Fuchen rushed towards MT Autumn Rain. MT Autumn Rain was a place where it rained throughout the year. Before Li Fuchen even got close to MT Autumn Rain, the sky was already drizzling. Arriving at the foot of the mountain, Li Fuchen followed a white staircase and headed towards the peak. The peak of the mountain was bustling with activity. This year's Autumn Rain Tea Party was indeed the most lively one in the past decade. There were more than 200 participants. Normally, there would only be 100 participants, and sometimes, there would only be a few dozen participants. Although compared to all the gold class direct disciples in the entire East Unicorn continent, 200 participants wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a small number either. What's more, those who attended were all reputable individuals and not those gold class direct disciples who were at the bottom. The peak of MT Autumn Rain was extremely flat and there were dozens of pavilions constructed. These pavilions were scattered all around the peak, and in the center of the peak, there was a giant contest stage. The contest stage was obviously reinforced by an array. It looked neither gold nor jade and contained traces of heaven and earth energy. Li Fuchen. In one of the pavilions, Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu saw Li Fuchen and quickly transmitted a message over. Beside Fan Qiansong, there was a young man who noticed Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu's unusual expression and couldn't help but look over. Hearing Fan Qiansong's voice, Li Fuchen's figure flashed and skimmed into this pavilion. Li Fuchen, it is fortunate that you made it in time. If not, it would be such a pity to miss out on this tea party. Fan Qiansong laughed. Li Fuchen replied, I went out for some matters. When I returned, I saw the letter you left behind. Chapter 236. You are Li Fuchen? Huang Yuxiang was surprised. Li Fuchen asked, What is it? Huang Yuxiang said, Some time ago, there was a warrant for your arrest in the city I was in. The one who issued the warrant was the Heaven-defying sect. Is that so? Hearing this, Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu were shocked. Being wanted by the sect was not a good thing. Li Fuchen frowned. If he didn't guess wrongly, it should be about Li Wuxia. Perhaps the Heaven-defying sect's sect master had used some kind of secret technique on Li Wuxia's body, so the moment Li Wuxia died, the Heaven-defying sect's sect master knew about it. Moreover, he had a conflict with Li Wuxia, so he was listed as a suspect by the Heaven-defying sect's sect master. As for whether there was evidence or not, it was not a problem for the Heaven-defying sect master. As long as he was a suspect, it was fine. He would capture him and bring him back. Huang Yuxiang laughed and continued, but the Heaven-defying sect withdrew the wanted order very quickly. From what I see, there is a limit to the dissemination. But you have to be careful. In the opposite pavilion, there are 2 gold-class direct disciples from the Heaven-defying sect. One of them is the star's rankings rank 101, Xiao Bai. Huang Yuxiang looked at the opposite pavilion. In response, Li Fuchen looked over too. The moment Li Fuchen looked over, a pair of eyes coincidentally looked over. There seemed to be a flash of cold lightning in the void. This person is Xiao Bai? In Li Fuchen's line of sight, on the second floor of the opposite pavilion, there was a young man standing with his hands behind his back. From the looks of it, he shouldn't be more than 30 years old, around the same age as emotionless sword Xue Feng. The young man had long hair that draped over his shoulders. His eyes were like blades and his cultivation was at the 8th level of the earth realm. His chi presence was abnormally terrifying and was much more terrifying than Fu Chongshan. It was obvious that he recognized Li Fuchen. The Heaven-defying sect's secret hall had sent a message to him, asking him to kill Li Fuchen on sight. 5th level of the earth realm. It seems like the information is wrong. Xiao Bai thought to himself. According to the intel from the secret faction, Li Fuchen was only at the 2nd level of the earth realm, but now he had an additional 3 levels. He must have gone to the Star Road Mystic Realm and consumed some sort of treasure. Xiao Bai's mind raced. The corner of Xiao Bai's mouth curled up dangerously as he retracted his gaze. Since he had encountered Li Fuchen, he couldn't let Li Fuchen leave alive. But the show had just begun and there was no need to be impatient. He's an expert. Li Fuchen raised his brows. For Xiao Bai to be ranked 101st on the star's ranking, it was obvious that his strength was far superior to emotionless Sword Xuefeng. Even the number 1 direct disciple, Sword Maniac, was only ranked 105th on the star's ranking. Of course, this was the ranking from more than a year ago. After more than a year, the star's ranking was no longer accurate. You might be ranked 101st in the previous tournament, but you might not be ranked 101st in this tournament. You might be ranked higher, lower, or even fall out of the rankings. After all, in every star's ranking, there would be plenty of powerful rising stars. The tea party had already begun. It was drizzling, and everyone was chatting while sipping tea. As for the distance between the pavilions, it wasn't considered a distance at all. As long as he infused his zhenqi slightly, his voice could be heard by everyone. If he didn't want others to hear him, he could choose to use his true qi to transmit his voice. Yang Tianyu, 1 month ago, you severely injured my sect's shitty. Do you want to let it go like this? Hurry up and get out here. A figure skimmed out from the pavilion and landed on the martial stage. He pointed at a pavilion and yelled out with anger. Zheng Yi, you must have eaten the guts of a leopard to dare challenge me. The young man named Yang Tianyu didn't have a pleasant expression as he skimmed towards the martial stage. Boasting shamelessly. Take my divine wind fist first. Who is afraid of you? On the martial stage, the figures were crisscrossing and chi forces were crisscrossing. There would always be grudges between sections. Some of the sects would even have a death grudge. When the disciples of both sects met, it was either you die or I die. It was obvious that the two individuals on the martial stage already had a grudge. After a few dozen moves, the young man named Yang Tianyu had the upper hand. He used a single move to break his opponent's defense and was planning to deal the killing blow. The Autumn Rain Tea Party is not allowed to kill. Why don't we end it here for my sake? Right at this moment, a graceful figure instantly appeared on the martial stage and spoke. Yang Tianyu had a ruthless expression and didn't have any intention to stop. The graceful figure was an absolute beauty. She frowned and waved her hand. In the air, it was as though a flower had bloomed and obstructed Yang Tianyu. Jing Yi, I shall let you off on account of Qin Keishi. If we meet again in the future, I will definitely kill you. Yang Tianyu snorted and skimmed into the pavilion. Qin Keishi was a young magnate on the star's ranking. With her making a move, Zheng Yi wouldn't have any chance. Damn it. Zheng Yi had an ashen expression. He took the initiative to challenge Yang Tianyu, but he didn't expect to be the one who was defeated. It was extremely embarrassing for him. Qin Keishi, this Zheng Yi isn't skilled enough. Farewell. Zheng Yi cupped his fist and swiftly left the peak of Autumn Rain. Yang Tianyu wanted to chase after him, but after thinking about it, he gave up. Qin Keishi sighed and didn't say anything. She tiptoed on the ground and returned to her pavilion. Qin Keishi is indeed formidable. Beside Li Fuchen, Huang Yuxiang praised silently. Fan Qianyu spoke with admiration. Qin Shiji is ranked 88th on the star's ranking and can be said to be the #1 expert of this Autumn Rain Tea Party. With her around, there won't be any life or death battles. That is natural. Otherwise, this Autumn Rain Tea Party wouldn't be able to be hosted anymore. Fan Qiansong nodded. Ranked 88th on the star's ranking, huh? Li Fuchen saw Qin Keishi's moves earlier. Even though he was at the 5th level of the Earth Realm, he still felt that Qin Keishi was ridiculously strong. That Yang Tianyu's ability wasn't inferior to Fu Chongshan's. When he went all out, he was actually blocked by Qin Keishi casually and didn't even have to execute any secret techniques. Her mystic class mid-tier intent is unfathomable and is adept at deflecting force. Furthermore, her cultivation technique rank is extremely high too, probably not lower than the 15th rank. Li Fuchen didn't think that he was the only one who cultivated the mystic class peak-tier technique, true inferno technique, to the 15th rank. No matter how good his perception was, he would still require a certain amount of time to comprehend and cultivate. This Qin Keishi was in her 20s and had cultivated for a few more years than him. It was natural for her to cultivate a mystic class peak tier technique to the 15th rank. After the first match, there were even more gold class direct disciples from other sects who went up the stage to spar. Which of these gold class direct disciples wasn't a prodigy? When they made their moves, their prowess was appalling and all sorts of martial arts and secret techniques were incredible. It was considered an eye-opener for Li Fuchen. Hu Ming, go up the stage and challenge Li Fuchen. I want to know his ability. Xiao Bai spoke to the youth at the side. Hu Ming licked his lips. Xiao Shixiang doesn't have to worry. Within 10 moves, I will definitely severely injure him. A pity that killing is not allowed during the autumn rain tea party. Don't be careless. Of course, if you have the chance to kill, do so. I don't like any undue delays. Xiao Bai didn't put Li Fuchen in his eyes. Had it not been for Qin Keishi, he would have immediately made a move to eliminate Li Fuchen. As for his personal challenge, Li Fuchen probably wouldn't accept it. After all, he was one of the star's rankings young leaders. As long as one wasn't a fool, he wouldn't accept the challenge so easily. Xiao Shixiang, is this fine? Hu Ming was rather astonished. Xiao Bai replied indifferently, if you kill him, will Qin Keishi kill you? That's true. He. Chapter 237. Li Fuchen, Hu Ming, would like to spar with you. Hurry up and come down. Hu Ming wielded a 9-ringed saber and shouted coldly. Li Fuchen, be careful. Fan Qiansong reminded Li Fuchen. This Hu Ming might not be one of the young heavyweights on the star's ranking, but he was still at the 7th level of the Earth Realm. A gold-class direct disciple at the 7th level of the Earth Realm was undoubtedly terrifying. They had cultivation and a strong foundation, unlike Li Fuchen, Fan Qiansong, and the others who had just become gold-class direct disciples a few years ago and didn't have much time to build up their foundation. In Fan Qiansong's eyes, this Hu Ming was at least at the same level as Fu Chongshan. Back at the tomb, he and Li Fuchen had to use all their methods and artifacts to barely kill Fu Chongshan. Li Fuchen's ability might have a drastic increase and was now at the 5th level of the Earth Realm, but he still couldn't underestimate his opponent. Who knew if this Hu Ming's ability was even superior to Fu Chongshan? Don't worry. Li Fuchen nodded. Before progressing to the 5th level of the Earth Realm, when he was at the 3rd level of the Earth Realm, he was already able to defeat Fu Chongshan with ease. Now, he could easily suppress his opponent without relying on his exceptional awareness. What are you dilly-dallying for? If you are afraid of losing, kowtow to me and I might let you off. Hu Ming laughed heartily. Be careful of your tongue being sprained by the wind. Li Fuchen landed lightly on the contest stage. The wind might sprain your waist, but it won't sprain my tongue. Li Fuchen, you are very arrogant, but there is a price to pay for your arrogance. I don't care if you are the one who killed the young patriarch. In my eyes, you are already a dead man. Hu Ming wielded his saber with a single hand and had a sinister and wanton look in his eyes. This Li Fuchen is probably in deep trouble. In the main pavilion, other than the gold-class direct disciples led by Qin Keishi, there was also a silver-clothed youth. He was the star's rankings 98th ranker, Ruan Qianxiu. Qin Keishi said, I don't think he is a match for Hu Ming either, but he shouldn't be too miserable. One was at the 5th level of the Earth Realm, while the other was at the 7th level of the Earth Realm. There was a difference of 2 whole levels. Without any special circumstances, Li Fuchen naturally wouldn't be a match for Hu Ming. But looking at Li Fuchen's relaxed expression, it made Qin Keishi waver. I know this Hu Ming. He is definitely one of the top 10 geniuses among the true disciples of the Heaven-defying sect. As for his strength, he is almost in the top 7. Wanting to fight Hu Ming, who is a level higher than him, is simply a fool's dream. Ruan Qianxiu had interacted with Xiao Bai before, so he knew some things about the Heaven-defying sect. We'll know once we see. Qin Keishi combed the hair on her forehead as her beautiful eyes stared at the stage. On the battling platform, Hu Ming made his move. In an instant, it felt as though 3 or 4 Hu Mings appeared at the same time. The nine-ringed saber blocked off all of Li Fuchen's escape routes from different angles. The saber light was as bright as a waterfall and had a chilling light that contained an astounding saber intent. Is this your swordsmanship? Too weak. Li Fuchen's expression remained the same. His body swayed like a willow in the wind and easily dodged Hu Ming's saber light. In that instant, it felt as though there were 3 or 4 Li Fucens stacked together. A strange light flashed across Qin Keishi's eyes. Being able to easily dodge Hu Ming's saber light required not only strength, but also shocking combat awareness. Long River Sunset Slash. Hu Ming roared and cleaved with his saber again. This saber slash was majestic and a long river of saber chi was gushing over. It was impossible to dodge it by a small margin and could only be dodged by relying on his astounding speed. Li Fuchen didn't intend to dodge. Drawing his black gold sword, Li Fuchen thrusted at the long river of saber chi. Swish! The long river of saber chi seemed to have lost its propulsion and instantly dispersed. Such fearsome combat awareness. He instantly found the flaw of the long river sunset slash. Qin Keishi couldn't help but comment. It wasn't exaggerated for such combat awareness to appear on a young magnate of the stars ranking. But when it appeared on an unknown individual, it was rather exaggerated. Every martial art move had its flaw. It didn't matter if you comprehended a martial art intent or not. After all, everything in this world had flaws, let alone martial arts moves. Hence, no matter how powerful a martial art move was, once its flaw was found, it would be like a venomous snake that had its weakness grasped. It would no longer be a threat. Impossible. My saber speed is so fast, how could he find the flaw of my saber move? Hu Ming felt a chill in his heart. Hu Ming, go all out. Xiao Bai's voice was transmitted into Hu Ming's ears. Hearing the command, Hu Ming's eyes burst out with radiance. Azura Battle Chi, activate. Hu Ming's chi presence suddenly surged. The 3-star secret technique, Azura Battle Chi, allowed his chi burst strength to be doubled. Die! The 9-ringed great saber turned into a long saber rainbow and violently slashed at Li Fuchen. At this moment, the saber speed wasn't just increased by a few folds, it was actually doubled. I have to keep a low profile. Even if Li Fuchen didn't activate the mystical dragon secret technique, he would still be able to easily neutralize Hu Ming's saber move. His combat awareness allowed him to instantly find 7 or 8 flaws of his opponent's saber move. It didn't matter how fast his opponent's saber speed was. But the more he exposed himself, the more danger he would be in. It was the best way to prevent others from seeing through him. With the activation of the mystical dragon secret technique, Li Fuchen's chi presence surged. The black gold sword thrusted out. Boom! Hu Ming burst in retreat. His saber chi was instantly dispersed. Impossible! Impossible! Hu Ming was going crazy. He could still accept being repelled by a frontal attack. But Li Fuchen's sword would always land on the flaws of his saber moves, which made him feel rather uncomfortable. Hu Ming is going to lose. Qin Keishi couldn't help but comment. Interesting? His combat awareness is rather strong. Yuan Qianxio's expression was rather gloomy. He was a star's ranker and had actually misjudged Li Fuchen. This was undoubtedly embarrassing, especially in front of Qin Keishi. You shall receive a sword from me too. Li Fuchen's figure floated above Hu Ming and brandished his sword. This sword move was the Starfire sword style's Starfire Sky. If it was anyone else executing this move, even if they comprehended the Starfire sword intent, it would still give off a feeling that it was traceable. But when Li Fuchen executed this move, the sky was filled with sparks. Every single spark seemed to have a spirit of its own. Piff! Hu Ming used his saber to block a small portion of the sparks. In the next moment, his chi protection was instantly scorched. As the sparks sprayed on his body, they scorched through his leather armor, leaving behind charred and bloody holes. Impudent! Xiao Bai was infuriated as he brandished his palm to kill Li Fuchen. Xiao Xiong, you and I are both ranked on the stars ranking. Let's not join in the fun. Qin Keishi didn't expect Li Fuchen's sword move to be so vicious. Looking at Hu Ming's condition, he would probably need to recuperate for a few months before he could fully recover. Without any precious herbs or elixirs, it was normal for him to not recover in his entire life. But she couldn't just watch as Xiaobai killed Li Fuchen. Xiaobai was ranked 101 on the stars ranking, and if he wanted to kill Li Fuchen, he would probably need 1 or 2 moves. Hence, when Xiaobai made a move, she followed suit. But Xiaobai's attack was too fast and Xiaobai was rather close to Li Fuchen. The massive palm was like a dark cloud that enveloped Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen, be careful! Fan Qiansong and Fan Qinyu yelled out. Chapter 238. No wonder he is a stars ranker. Li Fuchen's eyes shrank. He could naturally see Xiaobai's strength. His cultivation technique was definitely at the 15th rank. His mystic class, mid-tier palm intent was extremely profound. His combat awareness wasn't something Hu Ming could compare with. Be it the angle or timing of this palm strike, it was close to perfection. At least Li Fuchen could only see 3 flaws in this palm strike. A pity. Trying to strangle me without executing a secret technique. You are too confident. Li Fuchen sneered and executed the Starfire sword style's first move, like Starfire. A spot of sword light rushed into the sky and instantly broke Xiaobai's chi palm. Azura ghost palm. Xiaobai's brows twitched, his eyes were filled with murderous intent as he followed up with his second palm strike. This palm strike was obviously executed with his secret technique, increasing the power by more than 2 folds. That massive chi palm was surrounded by layers of black chi, like layers of black flames. Xiao Xiong, don't make things difficult for me. A beautiful figure materialized as Qin Keishi instantly appeared in front of Li Fuchen and used the 100-flower seal to disperse Xiaobai's Azura ghost palm. Xiaobai's expression didn't look good and his heart was filled with deep regret. He didn't expect Li Fuchen to be able to break his first palm strike. If he knew this would happen, he would have used his secret technique for his first palm strike. You are very lucky. But you have to remember that not every time a woman blocks in front of you. The next time I make my move, it will be the time of your death. Cherish your short life. Xiaobai let out a disdainful laugh as he supported Hu Ming and skimmed up the pavilion. Li Fuchen said, rules are meant to be broken. Perhaps you should rejoice that you managed to preserve your stars ranker status. In the pavilion, Xiaobai's expression changed as his eyes burst out with shocking murderous intent. Li Fuchen, you are courting death. Not only Xiaobai, the rest of the people were infuriated too. This Li Fuchen is too arrogant. Had it not been for Qin Keishi stopping Xiaobai, he would have been beaten to death by Xiaobai. Now he actually dares to say such shameless words. Qin Keishi shouldn't have stopped Xiaobai. Let Xiaobai kill him. This person is too shameless. Just because Xiaobai can't make a move, he is spouting nonsense. If I was Xiaobai, I wouldn't let him off. I have been in the 100-battle region for so many years and I have never seen such a shameless person. I have learned something today. Almost everyone was mocking at Li Fuchen for his overconfidence and shamelessness. From their point of view, Li Fuchen was relying on Qin Keishi's protection, which was why he was so unrestrained. While they were mocking, they were extremely furious. As for whether Li Fuchen truly had the ability to surpass Xiaobai, it wasn't within their consideration. Because this was something that would never happen. This Li Fuchen is too impulsive. Fan Shitty and Fan Shimmy, you must not get too close to this person. If not, he will bring disaster upon you. Huang Yuxiang frowned and said to Fan Qiansong and Fan Qinyu. Fan, Fuchen, Fan's Qinyu Fuchen, is, Li Fuchen is powerful by. Feng, Li Fuchen, Fan's Qi, Yang Bai is, Li is, Huang, Fuchen's, Feng. Fan Bai. Fan Qiansong frowned, nothing is absolute in this world. I believe in Li Fuchen. It didn't matter if Li Fuchen was bragging or not, he and his sister's lives were saved by Li Fuchen. Hence, he couldn't possibly listen to what Huang Yuxiang said. Distancing himself from Li Fuchen wasn't his style. Sai, the two of you are going to suffer sooner or later. Huang Yuxiang shook his head and didn't try to persuade them anymore. In the main pavilion, Ruan Qianxiu couldn't help but let out a light laugh. Seems like I have overestimated him. How can such a person achieve anything great? He is just a clown. Qin Keishi, you shouldn't have stopped Xiao Bai. On the contest stage, Qin Keishi was indeed regretting. She admitted that Li Fuchen had great potential. But potential was just potential. Before the potential could be converted into actual ability, it was best to keep a low profile. Such an unreliable high profile would only make people annoyed and wouldn't gain any sympathy. She was certain that if she left, Xiao Bai would definitely make a move to kill Li Fuchen. She might have started to loathe Li Fuchen, but she couldn't slap her own face. The Autumn Rain Tea Party didn't allow any killings. This was the iron rule of the Autumn Rain Tea Party and no one was allowed to break it. Hence, even if she had to brace herself, she couldn't allow Xiao Bai to kill Li Fuchen. I hope there won't be another Li Fuchen in this tea party. Qin Keishi prayed silently. You can go back first. With me around, I can ensure your safety. Qin Keishi waved her hand at Li Fuchen. Just as Li Fuchen was about to speak. Qin Keishi, Xiao Bai is ranked on the stars ranking, but I am not. Hence, I am here to challenge Li Fuchen. There shouldn't be any problem, right? A figure skimmed onto the contest stage and pointed at Li Fuchen while speaking to Qin Keishi. Qin Keishi nodded, no problem. All right then. Li Fuchen, you still have a chance if you kneel down and beg for mercy. Otherwise Xian will smash your mouth. Let's see if you can continue being so shameless. Xian Wuxia didn't like Li Fuchen at all. Since Xiao Bai wasn't able to make a move, then he would do it on Xiao Bai's behalf. He wanted to see if Li Fuchen could continue being so arrogant after he smashed his mouth. Are you sure you want to stand up for Xiao Bai? Li Fuchen narrowed his eyes, which were flickering with chilling light. No matter how good his temper was, after being humiliated like this, it was impossible for him to not be angry at all. Xiao Bai is a ranker on the stars ranking. I don't have the qualifications to stand up for him. But I must teach you a lesson. Xian drew a silver-black long saber and pointed it at Li Fuchen. In the pavilion, Xiao Bai spoke word by word. Xian, no matter what the outcome is, Xiao Bai, owe you a favor. Xiao Xiong is too polite. Xian let out a slight smile. To be able to obtain a favor from a stars ranking big shot was the best outcome. When the rest of the people heard Xiao Bai's words, they were silently regretting. This Xian's speed was too fast. If they knew it was this easy to obtain Xiao Bai's favor, they would have fought to go up the stage. Xian is ranked top 5 among the gold-class direct disciples of the Long Saber sect. His ability is far above Hu Ming. If Li Fuchen's ability is only at this level, he will definitely lose to Xian. Huang Yuxiang said to Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu. Fan Qiansong spoke in a firm tone. Xian isn't a match for him. If it was Xiao Bai, he would hesitate, but if it was Xian, he firmly believed that Li Fuchen would emerge victorious. I have the same opinion as my brother. I believe that Li Fuchen will win. Fan Qianyu spoke too. I think the two of you must have been bewitched by Li Fuchen. Huang Yuxiang was exasperated. He really didn't know what kind of medicine Li Fuchen fed the two of them to make them side with him in everything. Fan Qiansong spoke in a serious tone. Huang Xixiang, you have never interacted with him before, hence you don't know his astounding potential. This is understandable, but you cannot make such a presumptuous judgment. All right, I would like to see what kind of surprise he will give us. Huang Yuxiang tried his best to suppress his irritation and anger, while his eyes stared intently at the stage. He stood 10 meters away from Xian. I hope you don't regret this. Li Fuchen pursed his lips and dispersed the mystical dragon secret technique, activating the primary clear hand. Chapter 239. Xian was at the 8th level of the Earth realm. He might not be listed on the stars ranking, but his overall ability was far superior to Hu Ming. After witnessing Li Fuchen and Hu Ming's battle, Xian had a deep understanding of Li Fuchen's ability. In his opinion, Li Fuchen was only slightly stronger in combat awareness. Xian was always confident in his combat awareness. He might not be able to match up to Li Fuchen, but he was at least superior to Hu Ming. If Li Fuchen wanted to rely on his combat awareness to defeat him, it was undoubtedly a pipe dream. When the saber was brandished, Xian's figure blended into the saber light. This saber was the union of man and saber. This saber was as fast as a spark. Crackle! A dazzling thunder light flashed as Xen Wuyuan's saber slashed in front of Li Fuchen. Thunder Qi! Li Fuchen was rather surprised. Thunder and lightning Zhen Qi was the most explosive type of Zhen Qi. If the same blade was driven by thunder and lightning Zhen Qi, it would be at least 50% faster than other types of Zhen Qi. No wonder his opponent was so confident. It seemed like he thought that his blade speed was fast enough, and believed that it was impossible for him to see through the flaws of his blade technique. A pity that he was wrong. Li Fuchen's awareness was so strong that it was inhuman. Let alone an Earth Realm martial artist, even if it was a Heaven Realm martial artist, Li Fuchen would be able to see through the flaws in the opponent's move. Of course, a Heaven Realm martial artist's move was too fast. Even if Li Fuchen's awareness could see the flaws, his body wouldn't be able to react in time. Retreating quickly, while retreating, Li Fuchen pointed with his sword. This point was like a stroke of genius. Xen Wuyuan's Thunder Saber Qi was broken in response. The saber's speed dropped drastically, and so did the advancing speed. Violent Thunder 9 strikes. Xen Wuyuan had a flash of disbelief on his face. Taking a deep breath, he executed an even stronger saber move. Like an explosion of thunder, 9 streaks of thunder struck at Li Fuchen from 9 different directions. Each thunderbolt was actually a saber, a total of 9 sabers. The sword light twisted and turned, laying out layers of sword net in front of Li Fuchen. When Xen Wuyuan's thunder saber move landed in the sword net, 90% of the force was neutralized. To be exact, it wasn't neutralized, but the force was diverted. As for where the force was diverted to, Xen Wuyuan soon found out. The sword net exploded, and Xen Wuyuan's entire body was sent flying, his arms numb. Li Fuchen's 9 revolution sword style: the stronger the attack force, the stronger the counterattack force. Xen Wuyuan was equivalent to receiving a combined attack from Li Fuchen and himself. It would be strange if he wasn't sent flying. Piu, streaks of blood appeared on Xen Wuyuan's body. The counterattack of the 9 revolution sword art wasn't as simple as just sending Xen Wuyuan flying. Unknowingly, Xen Wuyuan's body was covered with sword marks, deep to the bone. Ah! Xen Wuyuan roared. It was too shameful, too humiliating. At this moment, the physical pain was nothing compared to the mental humiliation. Xen Wuyuan was on the verge of collapsing. Coupled with his blood-soaked body, he looked extremely pitiful. The spectators were dumbfounded. What was going on? Even Xen Wuyuan was defeated. Wasn't Xen Wuyuan brimming with confidence? How could he lose so quickly and so miserably? The second slash was clearly abnormally fierce, so why was he the one who was heavily injured? For a moment, the summit of Mount Autumn Rain was completely silent. Huang Yuxiang felt as though his throat was being choked by someone and couldn't speak for a long time. Huang Shixiang, I knew it. Xen Wuyuan isn't a match for Li Fuchen. Fan Qianyu spoke straightforwardly. Huang Yuxiang's expression was extremely unpleasant and sullen at the same time. He naturally didn't have any enmity with Li Fuchen. On the contrary, they had some friendly relations right from the start. He just couldn't stand Li Fuchen's arrogance and shameless boasting. He felt that if Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu were together with him, there would be plenty of trouble. He was just doing it out of kindness. But because Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu were overly protective of Li Fuchen, he had a bad impression of Li Fuchen. He originally thought that with Xen Wuyuan's help, he would be able to wake Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu up. Who knew the final outcome would be like this? This wasn't the outcome he wanted. Opening his mouth, Huang Yuxiang couldn't say a single word. Facts speak louder than words. Perhaps only Xiao Bai would be able to suppress Li Fuchen's arrogance. Anything he said now would be slapping his own face. On the opposite side, Xiao Bai's expression was even worse than Huang Yuxiang's. This Li Fuchen was truly infuriating. He had a body full of ability, but he couldn't do anything to Li Fuchen. Instead, he allowed Li Fuchen to be arrogant until now. Trash. In his heart, Xiao Bai was venting his anger on Xen Wuyuan. He felt that Xen Wuyuan was too useless. Since he wasn't a match for Li Fuchen, Why was he in such a hurry to come out? He even made Xiao Bai Oxn Wuyuan a favor for no reason. At the main pavilion, Ruan Qianxiu and Qin Keishi looked at each other. Now, not only was Ruan Qianxiu depressed and sullen, even Qin Keishi was feeling awkward. What was going on with this autumn rain tea party? Did she judge wrongly as well? Qin Keishi asked herself. Taking a deep breath, Qin Keishi decided not to express her opinion. She wanted to see how far this Li Fuchen could go and if she had really judged wrongly. This is really annoying. He might have some ability, but I can't stand his face. Is there anyone who can suppress his arrogance and stop him from appearing on the tournament stage? Even Xianxia and Wuxia was defeated. I reckon that apart from the star's rancor, there aren't many who can suppress him. Everyone was rather unhappy. After all, it didn't feel good to be slapped in the face. On the tournament stage, Xianxia and Wuxia was in a miserable and pitiful state. He stood there and didn't know if he should leave or continue the battle. If he continued the battle, he wouldn't even be a match for Li Fuchen when he was at his peak condition. Now that he was only left with 20% to 30% of his strength, wouldn't he be courting death if he went up? Didn't you say you want me to kneel and beg for mercy? Didn't you want to smash my mouth? I shall stand here and wait for you to make me kneel. Li Fuchen's eyes were cold and his words were piercing. Xianxia and Wuxia's face was filled with shame and indignation. Li Fuchen, don't go too far. I was just careless earlier. Careless? You can even come up with such an excuse. If I didn't show mercy, that counterattack earlier would have killed you 3 times. Li Fuchen sneered. Xianxia and Wuxia vomited blood and pointed at Li Fuchen, speechless. Li Fuchen, you are too much. Since you have already won against Xianxia and Wuxia, why do you have to kick him when he is down? This isn't something an expert should do. Just this point alone is enough for you to not go far on the martial Dao. On the opposite pavilion, there was an arrogant youth with long eyebrows that stood up and looked down at Li Fuchen. For you. Li Fuchen lifted his head and looked over. The youth laughed. Luo Qingyun. It is Luo Qingyun. A true expert is finally here. This Luo Qingyun is an elite prodigy from the Cloud Creek Sword sect. His cultivation is at the 8th level of the Earth realm. Defeating Li Fuchen is effortless. Everyone was overjoyed. The East Unicorn continent might be filled with sects, but everyone had detailed information about the elite prodigies of the various sections. Like the Azure Water sect's Sword Maniac and Sword Tiger, everyone knew about them because they were the elite prodigies of the Azure Water sect. Luo Qingyun, come down and fight. Li Fuchen's information naturally included Luo Qingyun. He was ranked number 2 among the direct disciples of the Cloud Creek Sword sect. His status was similar to the Azure Water sect's Sword Tiger and was far superior to Emotionless Sword. In fact, it wasn't because Emotionless Sword Xue Feng wasn't good. As someone from the same generation as Sword Maniac and Sword Tiger, Xue Feng's innate potential wasn't inferior to the two of them. It was mainly because he had yet to enter the Star Road hidden domain, while Sword Maniac and Sword Tiger had. Chapter 240. You're not my opponent. I just can't stand seeing you embarrass yourself. Luo Qingyun shook his head and had no intention of coming down. His Cloud Creek Sword sect was the same as the Azure Water sect, a Sword Dao sect. A swordsman always understood a swordsman the best. Li Fuchen's combat awareness was very high, but as long as it wasn't ridiculously high, he would be able to resolve it easily. Don't you dare? Li Fuchen asked. Luo Qingyun continued to shake his head. It's not that I don't dare, but I disdain it. Since you aren't willing to come down for a fight, then what qualifications do you have to criticize me? You aren't fit to be a swordsman, you are just a fake swordsman who pretends to be benevolent and righteous. Li Fuchen retorted coldly. Luo Qingyun's eyes were filled with coldness. You are trying to provoke me. You are not worthy for me to anger you, because I do not see you as an opponent. Good, very good. Since you want to taste defeat, I will fulfill your wish. Luo Qingyun jumped down from the pavilion. His aura changed. It became as sharp as a sword, as sharp as a blade. Even the corner of his clothes seemed to be able to kill people. I want to see how Li Fuchen is going to win this time. Luo Qingyun is known as the Green Cloud Swordsman, and his ability is just below the star's ranker. He isn't someone that Xianxia and Wuxia and Hu Ming can compare with. Luo Qingyun is naturally not someone that Xianxia and Wuxia and Hu Ming can compare to. Xianxia and Wuxia is only ranked in the top 5 in his own sect, while Hu Ming is only ranked in the top 7. As for Luo Qingyun, he is ranked second among the direct disciples of the Cloudy Creek Sword sect. His strength is extremely terrifying. What's more, both of them are swordsmen. Swordsmen should understand swordsmen better, which is why Luo Qingyun didn't have to spend much effort to defeat Li Fuchen. Wait and see. I hope Luo Qingyun can settle Li Fuchen in a few moves. I don't want to see his arrogant face anymore. Everyone was looking forward to seeing Luo Qingyun. Even the expression on Xiao Bai's face had eased up. With Luo Qingyun taking action, there was an 80% to 90% chance of success. Even in the Heaven Fiend sect, this person was definitely number 2. Only he could suppress him. Li Fuchen, you must do your best. Right now, Fan Qiansong and Fan Qinyu were rather apprehensive. Luo Qingyun wasn't like Xianxia and Wuxia or Hu Ming. He was a true expert. If the star's ranker didn't make an appearance, Luo Qingyun's strength would definitely be at the pinnacle. Huang Yuxiang grunted. He was waiting for Luo Qingyun to defeat Li Fuchen. He wanted to see what else Fan Qiansong and Fan Qinyu had to say. After all, Li Fuchen wasn't even a match for Luo Qingyun, let alone Xiao Bai. Qin Keishi, sit down. There's basically no more suspense in this spar, Ruan Qianxiu said with a smile as he sat down and sipped on his tea. Qin Keishi didn't say anything and stared at Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen, oh Li Fuchen. Whether or not I am talking big will depend on this. I hope I am wrong. The East Unicorn continent was too big. There were close to 100 sects, geniuses, and prodigies. The eyes of the people present were not all bright. Even she would sometimes have a discerning eye, which made her rather vigilant. On the martial stage, Li Fuchen's qi presence had also changed. The aura on Luo Qingyun's body was as sharp as a sword and as sharp as a blade. The aura on his body was also as sharp as a sword, but it also carried a heat that could burn the heavens. Li Fuchen didn't underestimate Luo Qingyun. Even though his true ability was definitely above Luo Qingyun, but it was his habit to keep a trump card. This person can be considered a quasi-prodigy. Li Fuchen thought to himself. In the sects, elite 4-star bone frames were considered prodigies, while 5-star bone frames were considered elite prodigies. But in the entire East Unicorn continent, 4-star bone frames were only considered prodigies, while 5-star bone frames were considered elite prodigies. Only those elite 5-star bone frames were considered quasi-prodigies. Which meant to say, in the current Azure Water sect, only Sword Maniac, Sword Tiger, and Emotionless Sword could be considered as quasi-prodigies. The rest were still up for discussion. 10 moves. Luo Qingyun's eyes turned sharp. You will have to withstand 3 moves from me first. Li Fuchen pointed the black gold sword at the ground. You are truly detestable. Now, shut up. Luo Qingyun made his move. A bone-chilling cold qi assaulted on the face. Luo Qingyun's sword was almost everywhere and everywhere. The surface of the martial stage that was reinforced by the array was covered with a thin layer of frost. The sword intent was bone-chilling. The qi was bone-chilling too. Luo Qingyun's qi was obviously the chilling cold qi. This kind of qi could freeze the opponent's qi and blood, slowing down their speed and reaction. Transform. Against Luo Qingyun's omnipresent bone-chilling sword, Li Fuchen executed the rotating flow sword art. The frost melted and in the air, a flaming whirlpool formed by sword lights was absorbing the chilling cold qi and sword qi. The surrounding temperature instantly rose and was unbearably scorching. Go! With a swing of the black gold sword, the flaming whirlpool sword light blasted at Luo Qingyun. As the heat wave assaulted his face, Luo Qingyun's expression changed. His cold wind sword art was actually neutralized so easily. Li Fuchen's sword art rank was obviously on par with his and was even slightly weaker than him. But Li Fuchen's timing and angle were too precise. It happened to be the flaw of his cold wind sword art. I would like to see how strong your combat awareness is. Luo Qingyun wasn't like Xianxia and Wuxia after all. His footsteps changed and there were layers of afterimages on the martial stage. If Li Fuchen could cultivate all the mystic class, low-tier martial arts to the trance stage, then Luo Qingyun could naturally do it too. Executing his footsteps, his figure became erratic. Coupled with the omnipresent cold wind sword art, it was like the arrival of the Grim Reaper. In the past, weaker Earth Realm martial artists wouldn't even be able to block a single blade from him. Unexpectedly, Li Fuchen didn't execute his light body technique or leg arts. Instead, he stood there without moving and used the black gold sword to defend. Li Fuchen is being suppressed. He must be feeling extremely aggrieved and humiliated. Everyone was happy to see this scene and looked like they were watching a good show. I have already figured out your moves. The fifth stage of the Star Road Hidden Domain was the solution of martial Dao. It tested one's combat awareness and combat skills. Li Fuchen only took a few moves to pass the stage and it was much easier than the fourth stage. But Luo Qingyun's combat skills weren't even comparable to the fifth stage and was only slightly stronger than the fourth stage. When the Starfire sword art was executed, there were sparks bursting out. This was the moment when Luo Qingyun's footsteps and sword art were at their most uncoordinated. It was also the moment when the old force was used up and the new force hadn't been regenerated. Once the Starfire sword art was executed, Luo Qingyun was instantly forced into a desperate situation. Luo Qingyun roared with rage and executed the cold wind angry howl. PFFF, 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 P. Li Fuchen's Starfire sword art enveloped from three sides. Luo Qingyun was only able to defend from two sides and didn't have enough time to defend from the other side. The Starfire scorched through the chi protection and left behind tiny charred wounds on Luo Qingyun's body. Compared to Hu Ming, Luo Qingyun's cultivation technique realm was 1 or 2 levels higher, and his cultivation realm was also 1 level higher. Thus, his resistance to the Starfire sword art was much stronger. However, the injuries he suffered weren't too serious, and he only looked ugly. You have lost. If you have anything to say, then say it all at once. Li Fuchen stared at Luo Qingyun, who had a pale expression and spoke indifferently. Luo Qingyun was overwhelmed with anger and vomited a mouthful of fresh blood. Chapter 241. To a certain extent, he was even more humiliated than Hu Ming and Xianxia and Wuxia. Because Hu Ming was the first to go up, it could be said that he wasn't clear of Li Fuchen's ability and was a little arrogant. Xianxia and Wuxia was extremely embarrassed. And he was even more humiliated than Xianxia and Wuxia. He was so humiliated that he had lost all his face. He had never been so humiliated in his entire life. Spurting out another mouthful of blood, Luo Qingyun's face was pale, and his eyes were lifeless. At the peak of Mount Autumn Rain, everyone was dumbfounded. Clear Sky Swordsman, Luo Qingyun was defeated too, and he was defeated in such a straightforward manner. Before this, they thought highly of Luo Qingyun and believed that Luo Qingyun wouldn't need to exert much effort to defeat Li Fuchen. Indeed, he had been defeated effortlessly. Am I dreaming? Hit me. This is simply incomprehensible. Who exactly is this Li Fuchen? He is only at the 5th level of the Earth Realm and is actually able to jump 3 levels to defeat Green Cloud Swordsman, Luo Qingyun. The Azure Water sect only has Sword Maniac and Sword Tiger. Where did this Li Fuchen come from? Damn it, is there no one who can strike a blow to his arrogance? Everyone felt a burning pain on their faces. Li Fuchen had repeatedly used facts to tell them what was the meaning of face slapping. Be it Hu Ming, Xianxia and Wuxia, or Luo Qingyun, all of them were extremely confident before the event, but ended up in a miserable state after the event. As for them, they were slapping their own faces time and time again. We won. Fan Qiansong and Fan Qinyu exclaimed in joy. Previously, they weren't too surprised and felt that it was reasonable for Li Fuchen to defeat Hu Ming and Xianxia and Wuxia. Now that Li Fuchen had even defeated Luo Qingyun, his heart was more or less pleasantly surprised. Beside them, Huang Yuxiang's expression was complicated and awkward. Who exactly is this Li Fuchen? Huang Yuxiang murmured. He had to admit that he had misjudged her time and time again. This Li Fuchen couldn't be viewed with common sense. His combat awareness was far superior to Luo Qingyun's. Even a star's ranker might not have a stronger combat awareness than him. Perhaps only a star's ranker could defeat him. Of course, even if he saw the crux of the problem, Huang Yuxiang's impression of Li Fuchen was already fixed. Li Fuchen had humiliated him several times and he couldn't treat it as nothing had happened. That trace of disgust was buried in the bottom of his heart. Kacha. The teacups in the main pavilion and Xiaobai's pavilion were crushed into powder. The ones who crushed the teacups were Ruan Qianxiu and Xiaobai. Ruan Qianxiu felt that he had lost all his face today, especially in front of Qin Keishi. This caused him to be unable to raise his head as he felt that Qin Keishi was secretly mocking him. Little did he know that Qin Keishi was embarrassed as well. When Luo Qingyun left the stage, Qin Keishi didn't think highly of Li Fuchen either, although she didn't say it out loud. Sigh. Qin Keishi shook her head and returned to her seat. She picked up her teacup and took a sip of tea, trying her best to soothe her emotions. Ruan Qianxiu laughed awkwardly. This Li Fuchen sure knows how to conceal his abilities. But that is because he hasn't met a true expert yet. If he met a true expert, concealing his abilities would only cause him to die faster. Qin Keishi declined to comment. In her heart, she did not think so. Battle awareness was not only used in battle, it was also very useful in analyzing the enemy's strength. Perhaps, his battle awareness had already sensed that he was able to fight against Xiaobai. Qin Keishi thought. The tea flowed through the gaps between his fingers. Xiaobai's face was expressionless. Immediately after, he took a glance at Qin Keishi who was in the main pavilion. After a few breaths, Xiaobai still didn't make a move. In such a situation, if he could make a move to kill Li Fuchen, he wouldn't attract the disgust of everyone. But if he was stopped by Qin Keishi, then he would be humiliated. Everyone would definitely doubt his demeanor and think that he was too scheming and would constantly look for loopholes. As such, who would dare to have a close relationship with him in the future? Who knew if he would suddenly turn his back on them? Winner takes all, loser takes all. This saying was applicable everywhere. The same action, if the outcome was different, would give off a different feeling to others. He either didn't make a move or made a move. He had to kill Li Fuchen without any mishaps. I shall let you live a little longer. Xiaobai tried his best to suppress his fluctuating emotions. Who else wants to fight? After defeating Luo Qingyun, Li Fuchen simply didn't go up. He wanted to see who else would be the first to step up. Too arrogant. Isn't he just taking advantage of the fact that this is a tea party and Xiaobai can't make a move? What other ideas do you have? Apart from the star's ranker, basically no one is a match for him. Sigh, that's true. Everyone was in a heated discussion. While they were angry, they were helpless at the same time. It is better to stop before going too far. Fan Qiansong was just about to send a qi transmission to Li Fuchen to ask him not to offend too many people. Qin Keishi, you sure are in a leisurely mood to actually host the autumn rain tea party here. A pity that with me, Tang Shiqi, around, it is best for you to stop hosting this autumn rain tea party. An enchanting and beautiful figure skimmed up the peak of the mountain. Like a black shadow, the person's toes landed lightly on the rooftop of a pavilion. This woman was around the same age as Qin Keishi and looked to be in her 20s. Her looks were only slightly inferior to Qin Keishi, but her figure was extremely enchanting and sexy. She was wearing a black leather shirt and skirt, revealing her perky breasts and revealing her pair of white thighs, which was dazzling to the eyes. It is the divine whip devil lady, Tang Shiqi. Ranked 89 on the stars ranking. She is Qin Keishi's archenemy. Once they meet, they will definitely fight for at least a few hundred moves. I heard that Tang Shiqi was injured by Qin Keishi previously. I reckon she is here to seek revenge. There is going to be a good show to watch. When everyone heard Tang Shiqi announcing her identity, they immediately recognized this woman. Qin Keishi stood up and spoke indifferently. Tang Shiqi, if you have anything to say, wait until the tea party is over. Why the need to create trouble? I am here to create trouble. What can you do to me? A white bone whip appeared in Tang Shiqi's hand. As she brandished the white bone whip, a sharp whip shadow was lashed at the main pavilion. In the air, there was a thunderous explosion and a ripple was emitted. 100-flower seal. In the air, a giant flower bloomed and blocked the whip shadow. Tang Shiqi, don't go overboard. Qin Keishi spoke coldly. Boundless nature. Tang Shiqi didn't even bother to talk nonsense with Qin Keishi. She brandished the white bone whip in the air and enveloped Qin Keishi like an inescapable net. In an instant, apart from the contest stage, the rest of the place was split open and crisscrossed with cracks. The appearance of the divine whip devil lady, Tang Shiqi, had excited Xiao Bai. He stood up and instantly rushed at Li Fuchen, who was on the contest stage. Li Fuchen, let's see who else can save you now. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time and the opportunity was finally here. As long as Tang Shiqi could hold back Qin Keishi, he would have the opportunity to kill Li Fuchen. As for whether Qin Keishi would blame him, he wasn't worried at all. Would Qin Keishi kill him because of Li Fuchen? Li Fuchen didn't have that much influence. What's more, he wasn't necessarily afraid of Qin Keishi. Li Fuchen is going to be unlucky this time. It is fine if Xiao Bai doesn't make a move this time, but once he makes a move, he will definitely kill. Who asked him to be so arrogant earlier? I reckon he didn't expect the divine whip devil lady, Tang Shiqi, to appear. Xiao Bai, kill him. Someone shouted. Chapter 242. Xiao Bai's ability wasn't weak and Li Fuchen had already felt it when they exchanged moves earlier. But he didn't go all out either. He was still holding back a lot of his battle awareness. He had yet to activate his black iron sword essence. The dark cloud-like palm enveloped at Li Fuchen. On the contest stage, the chi flow was heavy and the tyrannical palm intent was compressing the space. For this palm strike, Xiao Bai obviously utilized his hand's secret technique, causing his palm strength to increase by more than 2 folds. If a regular 5th-level Earth Realm martial artist was to be hit by this palm strike, they would immediately be crushed into a bloody pulp, leaving nothing behind. Right now, Qin Keishi was busy with her duel with Tang Shiqi and couldn't bother about Li Fuchen. Break! The flaming sword light converged into a vortex as Li Fuchen blasted at the chi palm. Gotcha! This sword seemed to be very powerful, but in fact, there was finesse amidst its roughness. The angle and timing were very precise. The swirling sword light instantly melted a big hole in the palm made of Xinqi. But the chi palm was too condensed. Even if there was a large hole, the remaining force didn't dissipate and was still slamming towards Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen flew back and slammed his chi palm on the martial stage. The stage shook and cracks appeared on it. He actually dodged that palm strike. He won't be able to hold on for long. This is just the first palm strike. Everyone might be surprised, but it was still acceptable. After all, Li Fuchen's ability wasn't weak and it wasn't possible to kill him just like that. No wonder he is a star's ranker. Li Fuchen narrowed his eyes. Xiao Bai might be a gold-class direct disciple from the Heaven-defying sect and had a feud with the Azure Water sect, but his ability wasn't just for show. It was the real deal. Even if Sword Maniac made a move, he might not be a match for Xiao Bai. If that's the case, Li Fuchen took a deep breath. The black iron sword pattern on his bones instantly lit up. A large amount of mystical dragon chi rushed in and transformed into black iron sword chi. The black iron sword chi was actually a kind of true chi. It could be used to attack directly, or it could be poured into a sword for a second amplification and guidance. What? The curling flaming sword light was like a crack of magma in the void as it surged toward Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai's brows twitched as he slapped the flaming sword light with his palm. Rumble! On the martial stage, a terrifying explosion of chi energy could be heard. The powerful shockwave caused the surrounding pavilions to tremble, as if they would collapse at any time. What a powerful strength! He actually clashed head-on with Xiao Bai. What's going on? How did his strength suddenly increase by so much? Could it be that he hasn't used his full strength before? Everyone was shocked speechless for a long time. Tang Shiqi and Qin Keishi's battle was actually more intense, but most of the eyes were on Li Fuchen and Xiao Bai. So powerful! Huang Yuxiang sucked in a cold breath. His strength was similar to Luo Qingyun's, perhaps even slightly inferior. Hence, he knew very well how difficult it was to increase one's strength at their level. Li Fuchen was only at the 5th level of the Earth realm and he didn't think highly of Li Fuchen. But now, everything he knew had been shattered. Li Fuchen's appearance had completely toppled his worldview. Starting from Xan Wuyin, it had been subverted time and time again, and was still being subverted now. Boom boom boom. The two of them exchanged blows again and again. Xiao Baixing's cultivation was profound, and his mystic class mid-tier true meaning was unfathomable. Li Fuchen was superior in his secret technique and combat awareness. Heavy Ghost Claw. Withdrawing his palm presence, Xiao Bai abandoned his palm art and switched to a claw art. This claw art was called the Netherworld God Claw. The Heaven Fiend sect had a set of claw art called the Netherworld Ghost Claw. Among the entire Heaven Fiend sect's disciples, only 3 individuals had cultivated this Netherworld Ghost Claw to the trance stage and had grasped the Netherworld Claw intent. Apart from Ghost Claw Xianxia, Xiao Bai was one of the other 2 individuals. But the Netherworld Ghost Claw was only a mystic class low-tier claw art, which obviously didn't suit Xiao Bai's status. Hence, he cultivated the mystic class mid-tier claw art, the Netherworld God Claw. The Netherworld God Claw was created by a senior from the Heaven Fiend sect based on the Netherworld Ghost Claw. It was even more domineering than the Netherworld Ghost Claw. The sky was filled with claw shadows that clawed recklessly, as though countless malicious spirits were attacking. Starfire Sky. Li Fuchen didn't decline and executed the Starfire Sword style, causing sparks to burst out. When the claw shadows and the sparks clashed, there was a continuous chi explosion. He actually withstood so many of my moves? Xiao Bai was extremely displeased. He had already activated his 3-star secret technique and still wasn't able to settle Li Fuchen within a few moves. Let's see how you block now. Azura Ghost Palm, Netherworld God Claw. Xiao Bai used the Azura Ghost Palm on his left hand and the Netherworld Ghost Claw on his right. One on the left and one on the right, he violently assaulted Li Fuchen. Li Fuchen didn't retreat or give way as he executed the 9 Revolution Sword style. This move of Xiao Bai's was indeed hard to defend against, but it still wasn't beyond his limits. The sword lights twisted and turned, spreading out layers and layers of sword nets. Xiao Bai's palm and claw arts were like moths flying into the flame, like clay oxen entering the sea. They were all immersed in and couldn't be extricated. Return. The sword net burst apart as Li Fuchen brandished his sword. Piff, 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 piff. There was a frenzied chi flow explosion as Xiao Bai was forced to retreat. Li Fuchen's sword art was too comprehensive. The Starfire sword style focused on offense. The 9 Revolution sword style defended and counterattacked. The rotating flow sword style clashed head-on. There weren't any shortcomings to speak of. If Li Fuchen had only grasped a mystic class mid-tier sword art, he would definitely be in a tight spot. On the other side of MT Autumn Rain's peak, Qin Keishi and Tang Shiqi's battle was even more intense. But Qin Keishi still paid attention to Li Fuchen's side. Seeing how Li Fuchen and Xiao Bai were fighting so well and not being at a disadvantage, her heart was indescribably shocked. No matter what, Xiao Bai was still a young powerhouse ranked 101 on the stars ranking. Even if she wanted to defeat him, she would need to expend a lot of effort. But Li Fuchen was only at the 5th level of the Earth realm and was able to fight until this point. How could she not be shocked? Qin Keishi, you still have the mood to be distracted? Be defeated. Tang Shiqi's whip art could be hard or soft and had many variations. The long whip shadows interweaved and weaved into a giant net, enveloping Qin Keishi. Tang Shiqi, since this is the case, don't blame me. Qin Keishi formed a seal with both hands and blasted out abruptly. In an instant, the entire sky was filled with the shadow of fresh flowers, which broke apart the whip net. The more Xiao Bai fought, the more apprehensive he got. He didn't know how the Azure Water sect could produce such a monster. Sword Maniac might be formidable, but he was still at the 8th level of the Earth realm, while Li Fuchen was only at the 5th level of the Earth realm. His eyes were blazing with murderous intent. Xiao Bai dispersed his hand's secret technique and executed the 3-star secret technique, Azura Battle Qi. His qi presence rose steadily and his body was covered with boundless black qi. Breaking through the sword qi seal, Xiao Bai struck out with his palm and claw at Li Fuchen. Xiao Bai took advantage of his powerful qi protection and coupled with the Azura Battle Qi, he intended to have a close combat battle with Li Fuchen. This move was indeed effective. Li Fuchen instantly retreated step by step. Block for me! Block for me! Xiao Bai was in a frenzied state. Blaze Devil Sword Art, back off! Li Fuchen yelled out, as a violent and blazing sword presence rushed into the sky. In the next moment, a blazing sword dipper swept out, forcing Xiao Bai to retreat a few dozen meters, putting him in a miserable state. The Blaze Devil Sword Art was a mystic-class high-tier sword art. Li Fuchen might not have been able to cultivate it to the trance stage and grasp the Blaze Devil Sword intent, but it was already at the perfection stage. Its firepower was 30% stronger than the Starfire sword style. Xiao Bai has been forced to retreat. Chapter 243. It was already shocking that Li Fuchen was able to resist Xiao Bai. Forcing Xiao Bai back was something that no one dared to imagine. The Stars Rankings young magnates weren't just words, but they had actual strength. In the Stars Ranking tournament that was held once every 3 years, which of the participants weren't prodigies? But only 108 of them were able to be ranked in the Stars Ranking. Stars Ranking 101. This ranking might be a little low, but it was only for the people in the Stars Ranking. To those outside the Stars Ranking, it was already a great honor to be ranked in the Stars Ranking. Not every sect had someone ranked in the Stars Ranking. But if Li Fuchen was able to force Xiao Bai to retreat in a single blade, it didn't matter what the final outcome was. It meant that Li Fuchen had the ability to be ranked on the Stars Ranking. A mystic-class high-tier sword art is indeed a mystic-class high-tier sword art. Even without comprehending the sword intent, it is still so powerful. After forcing Xiao Bai back with a single blade, even Li Fuchen was shocked. In his opinion, the Flaming Devil Sword art was not only 3 times more powerful than the Starfire sword art, but it was also 3 times more powerful than the rotating flow sword art in a head-on clash. A single sword art combined the advantages of 2 great sword arts. Profound rank high rank sword art? Xiao Bai gritted his teeth. He had not been able to cultivate a high-grade profound level martial art to the great perfection realm. He had only cultivated a high-grade profound level martial art to the acme of perfection realm. A profound level high-rank martial art at the acme perfection realm, regardless of power or subtlety, could not compare to a profound level middle rank martial art that had comprehended true meaning. Taking it out would only be a disgrace. But Li Fuchen was different. His mystic-class high-tier sword art had already reached the perfection stage. It had surpassed all mystic-class mid-tier sword arts that had comprehended sword intent. Profound level high-rank martial art consumes a lot of true qi. Let's see who can hold on first. Xiao Bai's body was emitting Azura Battle Qi as he rushed at Li Fuchen again. Really? Li Fuchen naturally knew that mystic-class, high-tier martial arts consumed a lot of qi. Due to his low cultivation level, the qi consumption would be much faster than normal. But to deal with Xiao Bai, was there a need for a protracted battle? His battle instincts combined with the Flaming Devil Sword technique allowed him to completely suppress his opponent. Wielding the black gold sword with both hands, Li Fuchen raised it high and cleaved downwards. A dazzling fiery light burst forth, and a blazing magma-like sword energy slashed out, sending Xiao Bai flying. Regardless of whether it was the timing or the angle of this sword, it was extremely exquisite. Xiao Bai couldn't dodge it even if he wanted to and could only passively receive it. Again! Li Fuchen thrust at Xiao Bai again and the blazing sword dipper instantly extended. Xiao Bai didn't have any leeway to retaliate as he spurted out a mouthful of blood. Impossible, I'm actually not his match. Xiao Bai's eyes were bloodshot. He didn't dare to believe the truth before his eyes. He was a Stars ranker, and even if Sword Maniac was here, He was confident that he could suppress him. But a rising star was actually able to suppress him. How could he accept this? Die. Xiao Bai's hand instantly had a few more darts as he threw them at Li Fuchen. The speed of the dart was so fast that it almost ignored the space between them. Li Fuchen took a glance and saw that the dart was coated with poison. There was also a crystal embedded in the center of the dart. This crystal was emitting a weak glow, which caused the power of the dart to increase. Li Fuchen had a feeling that if he stood still, the dart would be able to penetrate his chi protection and severely injure or even kill him. This dart isn't simple. Li Fuchen thought to himself. The dart naturally couldn't hit Li Fuchen. With his valiant combat awareness, Li Fuchen was constantly on high alert. Once the dart appeared, Li Fuchen's true body had already shifted, leaving behind only an afterimage. The dart penetrated the afterimage and penetrated a pavilion before flying far away. It was unknown where it flew to. Be defeated. Li Fuchen raised his sword diagonally and lifted Xiao Bai into the sky. But Xiao Bai wasn't that easy to kill. Li Fuchen's second sword didn't hit Xiao Bai, but hit the shield that was placed horizontally in front of Xiao Bai. Clang. Sparks flew violently like a storm. Xiao Bai's entire body was sent flying along with the shield, while he violently vomited fresh blood. Above the pavilion, everyone was completely numb. Li Fuchen's strength couldn't be described with words. Be it Xen Wuyuan, Luo Qingyun, or Xiao Bai, all of them went up and were brutally abused without exception. They suspected if the current Li Fuchen was going all out and was still hiding his true strength. Li Fuchen is too strong. Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu felt as though they were in a dream and had a surreal feeling. They realized that it was as though this was their first day knowing Li Fuchen and they couldn't keep up with his tempo. All of us have belittled him. He might not be ranked on the stars ranking, but he is undoubtedly an elite prodigy. If he is given a certain amount of time, no one would be able to stop him. Qin Keishi was in an intense battle with Tang Shiqi while thinking to herself. Instantly catching up to Xiao Bai, Li Fuchen cleaved at him again. Clang. The shield in Xiao Bai's hand flew out. His entire arm was so sore and numb that he couldn't lift it. The shield might be indestructible, but the force of the Blaze Devil Sword art was transmitted over. Xiao Bai was appalled and quickly skimmed towards the main pavilion. There was someone there who could lend him a helping hand. Where are you going? Li Fuchen executed the finishing move of the Blaze Devil Sword art. With a single slash, a scarlet-red shadow enveloped Xiao Bai. PFFF, 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 PFFF. Multiple shallow sword wounds appeared on Xiao Bai's body. Ruan Xiong, why aren't you helping me? Xiao Bai roared at Ruan Qianqiu. Ruan Qianqiu had a gloomy expression and revealed his murderous intent. Li Fuchen's heart skipped a beat and withdrew 30% of the force from the sword move that he had executed. Rumble. The main pavilion shook as Ruan Qianqiu leaped up high like a rock spreading its wings. The pale gold truncheon in his hand was ruthlessly smashed at Li Fuchen. As the sword move crumbled, Li Fuchen took 3 steps back. Appearing in front of Xiao Bai, Ruan Qianqiu spoke indifferently. How dare you be so unbridled in the autumn rain tea party? You really don't put us in your eyes. Since that is the case, don't blame me, Ruan Qianqiu, for making an exception. Ruan Qianqiu's murderous intent burst out and his appalling chi presence was even stronger than Xiao Bai's. Xiao Bai's injuries weren't considered severe as he didn't receive a direct hit from Li Fuchen. But if Ruan Qianqiu didn't make a move, he would definitely be dead. Seeing Ruan Qianqiu make a move, Xiao Bai's heart calmed down. He spoke to Li Fuchen with malevolence and hatred. Li Fuchen, you must die today. If Li Fuchen didn't die, he wouldn't be able to rest in peace. His heart demon would continue to torment him. Let's go assist Li Fuchen. Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu quickly spoke up when they saw Ruan Qianqiu making a move. The two of you better stay behind and watch the show. Xen Wuyuan and the other gold-class direct disciples from the Long Saber sect obstructed Fan Qiansong and Fan Qianyu. The Cloud Creek Sword sect was also eyeing covetously. You don't have to make a move. Li Fuchen sensed the commotion over there. Dog-like thing. You better take care of yourself first. I allowed you to be arrogant for so long. Now it is time for you to pay the price. Yuan Qianxiu had long disliked Li Fuchen. Had it not been for the fear of Qin Keishi's blame, he would have already gone down to teach Li Fuchen a lesson. Now that Xiaobai was begging him, if Qin Keishi were to blame him, he could just say that he was helping Xiaobai. Furthermore, Qin Keishi wouldn't make things difficult for him because of a stranger. Later on I will make you beg for death. Li Fuchen, your life from now on will only be filled with despair. Xiaobai laughed sinisterly. He no longer had that arrogant and superior look from before. The current him was like an evil spirit. As for propriety and honor, he had long discarded it. Welcome to Immortal Cultivation Audiobooks, your gateway to the mystical world of Xianxia. Dive into legendary tales of martial arts, spiritual growth, and immortal ascension. Here, we bring you full-length English audiobooks of the best Wuxia and Xianxia stories, from young prodigies to ancient sect wars. Perfect for fans of Against the Gods, Martial World, and tales of demons and gods.